Hey, everybody. Welcome to Hattrick's Unofficial Flyers podcast. This is Rick Mullen. I'm your host, and we are going to put a quick episode out before the draft this upcoming Friday just to catch up because we took some time off. We watched the end of the Flyers season. We posted, some quick recaps, and then we haven't posted anything since. I sat back and I watched the Stanley Cup playoffs, the end of them. I watched Carolina Hurricanes win, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. And then, I sat back for a couple weeks here and waited to see kind of what started happening. Some of the rumors were out there, and what some teams have done already, what some teams are rumored to do. And before the draft comes, I figured let's get a quick episode out, and then we'll get another one out in July after the first, and try to see what the Flyers and the rest of the league does. But real quick, let's start with the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina Hurricanes are on a tear. They were on a tear of this playoffs. They owned almost every team they played. They didn't really hit any adversity until they played Vegas, and then they figured them out pretty fast too and shut the door on them. So, looking at the Carolina Hurricanes, Rod Brindamore is you can just tell Rod Brindamore is one of them. I mean, he's one of them. He doesn't look like their coach. He looks like one of their players. Rod the Bod. He is in incredible shape. You can see how they talk with him and treat him. He fits right in that locker room, and he is going to definitely be in the Carolina Hall of Fame and maybe even the Hockey Hall of Fame after all said and done. So big win for Brindy. I'm excited. I'm happy for him. It was nice to see him lift that cup again, and Carolina did a fantastic job. And we're going to kind of talk about them a little bit because Carolina is built so completely different than most NHL teams. These NHL teams out there like Edmonton and Dallas and Colorado, Toronto, they all have big name players. Vegas, big name players, and they're paying high salaries to a lot of them. And some of these teams like Edmonton, Toronto, there was no money really left for them to build around these guys. And that's what scares me with the Flyers. I do not want the Flyers to be in that position. I really don't. It's not a fun position because you try to ride with your star players, kind of like Pittsburgh's doing. Like they're trying to keep their star players, and then every year they bring in like third and fourth liners and hope that they stick or hope they overperform. And when they don't, it's just a scrap year and they got to start all over again. And they can never kind of get there. And I know Pittsburgh did when they were younger, but I'm just talking about recently. And that's kind of where the Flyers may be headed because there's a lot of pressure put on Danny and Jonesy and with the media saying like we need that star player, we need that star center and that star um, defenseman, and it scares me that they're going to make a decision that's going to lock this team up. I personally would rather see them follow Carolina's path. I looked at the salary for the Carolina Hurricanes, and they have nobody on that team, not a soul, making more than like 9.8 million. I think Aho's like really close to that million, that 9.8. I think the next one down is Ehlers, and he's in like 8.5, something like that. And then everyone else is like 6, 5, 3, 1s. They in my opinion have done it the correct and right way, and they can sustain that for years. For years they could sustain this. So they have no stars. They're paying everyone under 9.8 million, and they were one of the most dominant teams in the league. And there's a lot to be said for that. I would rather the Flyers have four good solid lines than overpay for a star and go back to eras here in Philly when we had only one lines that worked. Like the Lindros era, we had one line pretty much the whole time. I mean, there were some exceptions there, but that was pretty much the truth. And I don't want to do that again. I lived through it. It's great for us to have like that guy where we can say, yeah, he's ours. He's our number one center. The league looks at him, and we all want that. We are jealous when we see Pittsburgh have Sidney Crosby for all these years. I get it. I've watched the Flyers since the 70s, mid 70s when they won the cup, and I get it. We went through some years there through the 80s where we had some guys that were good, but they weren't really like the stars. And then all of a sudden we hit Lindros and it was like, oh, we finally got that star. And I get it. I get it. But I just don't think it's sustainable. I think if the Flyers approach this in a different way, they could build a team like Carolina and compete almost every year. And yeah, some of it's luck, some of it's skill, some of it's good trading, good drafting, but I would rather the Flyers do that. And we're going to peel off that a little bit because there's two moves right now that are like a ton of rumors. Well, let's start back at what's happened since our last conversation. So the Flyers made a trade. The Flyers traded Andre and Urson in a pick to Toronto for Wall and Benoit. Wall was a great pickup for us. Definitely a good pickup. He's not making that much money. Benoit's not making that much money. But getting rid of Urson, it was 100% what the Flyers had to do. They couldn't take a chance on Urson repeating what he's repeated these last couple years. He had to go. And Wall is kind of like Vladar. Wall is he's good. He's a big body. He is a really good goalie. I think he had some injury prone, right? So I know a lot of Toronto fans were complaining that he's always hurt. So let's hope that's not the case, and that might be his only downside. However, he has some really good numbers. I mean, he definitely has the potential to be a very good goalie here for us, especially in Tockett's defensive system. So I'm excited about that pickup, and it didn't cost us anything. We got rid of Andre and Urson. Andre was going anyway, and so was Urson. So I think it was a really good move by Danny. I think the Flyers won that trade. I don't even think Urson gets signed by Toronto. I think come July 1st, he's a free agent and they're not going to qualify him. So we basically gave up a pick and Andre for Wall and Benoit. Benoit is a little bit better than Juleson. He's a big kid. He hits hard. If Tocchet needs that big banging body, and we let Juleson walk. We don't re-sign him. Benoit will fit that role, so he will replace Juleson. So maybe Benoit's not even on this team a month from now because it's still early and there's a ton of things that still can be done. But if he is, that's the role he's going to play. He's probably going to play that seventh guy. So that was a good trade for the Flyers. The Flyers won. They sealed up their need in goal, and now they can focus on defense and forwards, right? Centers. And with that said, we're going to walk into the Senators trade that just happened this past weekend. The Senators trade Brady Tkachuk to the Florida Panthers. He's going to go play with his brother, and gave up picks, gave up a few first-round picks, and I think a second-round pick. And it's funny because Brady was trying to say, "Hey, this isn't happening. Like I'm an Ottawa Senator, like all summer so far." And meanwhile, they were on podcasts with his brother and Matthew Tkachuk, and Matthew's like basically tampering, talking to Brady about coming to the Panthers. And lo and behold, Brady ties the Ottawa Senators' hands. He gives them a list of 4 teams. I forget the teams. I think it was Carolina, Vegas, Panthers, and somebody else. I forget. But anyhow, it was kind of like, hey, here's 4 teams, but really he wanted to go to the Panthers, and that's where he ended up. So that leaves the Senators in a position where they got to start doing a little bit of a rebuild here. And there's been tons of rumors the last 2 weeks about the Flyers being interested in their centers. So, in particularly in this order, the Flyers, and tons of articles, tons of podcasts being talked about right now that the Flyers are interested in this order in Pinto, Cousins, and Ridley Gregg. Let's talk about these 3 guys, right? So I'm going to start at the bottom. Ridley Gregg is a third line center. He's making 3.25 AAV until 2029. He's 6 foot, 184 pounds. He had 13 goals and 22 assists for 35 points this past year. Ridley Gregg is kind of like a Noah Cates-ish kind of player. He's a little younger, cheaper, right? And that's where this question comes in. Like, why would the Flyers be interested in Ridley Gregg? I don't know. Like, he wouldn't be on our radar. We have Cates, we have Dvorak. I just don't see what the interest is there. Now that could just be smoke, like, hey, we're interested in three centers. But there could be something else there too. Like, there could be some thought process where the Flyers feel like maybe they have to move on from Noah Cates. There's teams asking, and maybe there's value there where they could trade Cates in a package for something, and Ridley would be like a replacement center. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that the Flyers are linked to Ridley Gregg. Um, I just do. I know his father, I think, works with the Flyers, so there's that. But I just don't see the fit here unless we move somebody out, right? Like a Noah Cates out or a Dvorak out. So, and in all honesty, even with that, I don't know why we would get him. There's other options, in my opinion. So going up to the next in line is Cousins. So Cousins is 25 years old. He's a little more established as a center. He's making 7.1 mil until 2030. He's 6'3", 205 pounds. So that's a good size center for us. He has 82 games under his belt last season. He did 28 goals, 31 assists for 59 points. So not super exciting, but definitely a good center that the Flyers would and could use. He's not putting 75, 80 points, 90 points up. Maybe it's because of the role he played there. Maybe there's more upside. He did have, I think, a career year a year or two ago, and then he hasn't hit that career year. I think he had like 69 points or something like that. I'm sorry, I didn't check my numbers. But he's an option. But it sounds like the Flyers are linked to Pinto. Pinto is 25 years old as well. He's making 7.5 mil until 2030. He's 6'3", 206 pounds. So pretty much the spit and image here of Cousins, except he has less points. He's only played 72 games, so he missed 10 games last year. He has 23 goals, 23 assists for 46 points. So he costs a little bit more. He's 25 years old, and he's got only 46 points. Matvei Mishkov had, what, 51? So he's not, he didn't have a great year, and maybe he wasn't used a lot. And maybe that's that reclamation project again, where the Flyers say, okay, listen, this guy Pinto has more upside. We're going to give him more time. Giving him more time will probably get him more points. And, okay, I see something like that. So I wouldn't be too upset with getting Pinto or Cousins, really. I just don't want to tie our hands with a long-term contract of a guy who's going to pull 7.1 mil, and he's only going to get 40 to 50 points with us. And I know this is what Danny does. Like, Danny's going out there trying to get those reclamation projects, and these guys aren't really reclamation projects. It's just the Ottawa's deep in centers, and they probably need to move one of them. So these are options for the Flyers. Hopefully it doesn't cost them a lot. There's rumors that the Senators are interested in Ristolainen. There's also rumors that now with Brady Tkachuk on, they'd be looking at a Tippett kind of offer, which, again, we're going to talk about Tippett. I just don't want to see Tippett go. I don't want to see Tippett go. I think Tippett is on a great cheap contract. This goes back to that thought process of building like the Hurricanes, right? He's not costing a lot of money. He's playing much better than the salary we're paying him. He's the fastest guy on our team, and he hits, and he could turn a game real quick on his own. And we don't really have many guys on this team that can do that. Probably just him, maybe Zegras, maybe from time to time. But Owen Tippett is much needed on this team. I don't trade him. I think he's just not tradable, in my opinion. But you have to give to get, and there might not be much for us to give, if we don't want to get rid of a Martone or a Mishkov. So I understand it. I hope it doesn't happen. If it does, I'll understand it, but I would rather them not do it. There's other options for the Flyers. I mean, almost everybody that's available, the Flyers are linked to, which is okay. They should be. They should be looking at every option they can. The number one thing is, I read an article a day or two ago that the Flyers are watching Austin Matthews. They're trying to sit back and see what happens. There's really no official comment from the Matthews camp and what they're doing, but there's a lot of smoke there again with a player who probably wants to get out. And if he drops the hammer and says, trade me, I don't know if Toronto would even let that leak. I know it'd be hard to hold that in, but it could be happening right now where Toronto's out there scouring the market trying to figure out what they could get for him. But being Toronto, they don't want it out and about in the news. So really, the only thing that's out there is there's a possibility that Austin Matthews isn't happy. Um, I don't want to see the Flyers do that. I really don't. I do not want to see the Flyers wrapping up 10, 12, $14 million on a player. I think it hurts. I think when you put that much money into one player, it's almost impossible to succeed. It just hurts because you're limited with what you can put around them. And, these other teams like Toronto and Edmonton, and, we went down the list, they're struggling with it too. So I don't want to see it. I really don't. And then you have the John Carlson rumor where you bring him in, you pay him like 8-9 million a year. He's our power play quarterback for 2 years. He trains these new kids, how to play. And I don't know if I want to do that either. Like that would have to be. I guess I would do it if like Ristolainen had to go, but it's not really what I'm looking for. I think bringing Carlson in, he's too old. He's too old. Yeah, he can play a little bit still, but in my opinion, he's too old. It's going to cost too much. I'd rather do other things. I really would. So I'm going to be negative a lot this this podcast because the options I'm reading about, I don't know if like there's a lot of interest by the Flyers or if it's just all smoke and mirrors because this is what people write about. But Bowen Byram's available. I think he's making like a little bit under 7 million, 6.5, 6.8, something like that. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He's not happy in Buffalo. He wants to be moved. He wants to get a chance to go to a team that's going to make him like the number one power play guy, the guy who's running it. So he's really looking for that opportunity, which is really what I wanted to see. And Bowen Byram wouldn't be a bad pickup, but it's just what would it cost us, right? And it may cost us a lot to get him. And the other flip side of this is there's rumors that him and his agents are really hard to work with. That he thinks that he should be getting like close to $14 million or something like that, right? And that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Does he have potential to be that kind of player? Maybe. I don't know, 14 million, but 10, 11, 12, maybe. But he hasn't done it yet. Like he needs to come in, take a cap friendly, you know, contract, prove his value, maybe a short term, do a 2 or 3 year extension, prove what you are, and then maybe they look at paying you, down the road. But if he's going to go to market and try to get the highest he can, from which I hear his agent does, at the end of this 1 year, if the Flyers wouldn't throw like sick money in him, it sounds like he would go to market trying to just get the highest bid he can and leave. Don't know if that's true. That's just what I'm reading. So Bowen Byram is interesting from a talent perspective and what he might bring, but the cost might be astronomical and hurt this team in the long run. Then there's other rumors out here. Almost every player available out here is up for grabs, right? And the Flyers are linked to Mason McTavish. The Ducks are looking to move him from what they're being said. There's interest by the Flyers. Danny and Verbeek have a history of making trades, so it wouldn't be something I'm sure that they're not talking about. But what does Mason McTavish bring? We don't really know. He's a kid who's tough. He likes to hit. He does have good hands around the net. But they say his skating is weak. He's slow. The Flyers don't need any more slow players. We don't. Speed kills. Trying to keep up with the Canes when that series was difficult. Our best skater was out. We had a lot of slow guys out there trying to keep up. And the Flyers didn't do too bad, really, against the Canes. They really didn't. They played pretty strong other than that first game. And it was good to see. But you have some older guys that are going to start getting slower, like TK, Couturier. Age just hits every one of us. And, if bringing a Mason McTavish in, like on the cheap, may not be that bad of a thought process, right? In theory, right? But I don't know if he has the skill sets that we need. A little bit of me thinks like Mason McTavish is a tough kid. Could you put him like in front of the net, like a Wayne Simmons type of role on the power play? that might work. Let him get in there, let him grind, let him get in front. Martone's doing it a little bit towards the end of this year, and he'll probably continue to do that in the next year. But there's a spot and a place for McTavish for sure, but it might not be the best overall fit, if that makes sense. There is more thoughts here. Again, there's another article I just read yesterday that the Flyers doubled back on Shane Wright. And man, this is one that just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. Flyers were linked to Shane Wright a long time ago. Shane Wright, he's a kid who got picked up. He was supposed to go number 1, number 2 in his draft year, and I don't think he did. I forget what number he went, 6 or 7, something like that. But he had all this potential. He was definitely like well liked in the media, right? But at the draft, he fell. He fell down everyone's list. So there was something there these teams didn't like. I don't know if it was attitude, work ethic. I don't know. But when he went to the Kraken, they absolutely did not treat him well. They didn't treat him well. He probably, in my opinion, I don't know, I wasn't internal there. I'm sure he was upset. He wasn't all excited about how they treated him. I'm not sure how hard he tried to get into the roster. But I think he felt jilted, and you can see even now to this day he's playing like 12 minutes average with them, and he's not living up to his expectations. But Seattle's not really playing him and giving him the opportunity to either, in my opinion. So Shane Wright to me is he's a little faster. He definitely had a lot of potential coming into the league. He is definitely on that Zegras level where he's a reclamation project. He could turn out to be something really special if given the right opportunity, or he could flop. Right, he could just be okay, and that's where it's okay. If in my opinion, the Flyers went after Shane Wright, I don't think they'd have to give up much for him. That's just my opinion, and I think he might fit in pretty well with us. He might get a chance to actually excel, and I'd like to see it. He's got this skill set. He could pull this off, I think, better here than there, and he's got a good team around him. So if somehow Danny could bring him in, it wouldn't bug me, because he's a short-term contract. I think he's got a year left too, and we get a chance to see what he's got. And if it doesn't work out, you move him on. But most of the rumors, and these are just rumors because it's not really been out there that this player is available, but Matty Beniers is somebody who would fit the Flyers very well. And that is probably the target that the Flyers are shooting for. They're trying to get a Matty Beniers. They're probably looking at all options, because if they have to pick somebody up, they need options. But I think Matty Beniers and maybe Pinto are their top 2 that they're going after, at least that we see. The Flyers are a very secretive organization. They keep things really quiet. So there could be a lot of things going on out there that we don't even know about, and Danny's going to hit us with later out of the blue, which would be okay, right, if it's the right stuff. But all these names we kind of just went over are definitely players that the Flyers could have a shot at and maybe not have to give up the farm. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do. And they have a lot of avenues here. So I think this week going into the draft, and then, obviously after July 1st, I think there's going to be a lot of movement in the NHL. There was already a lot of movements already. And, normally it doesn't happen a lot like this. And I think this year is going to be a little different. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to try to make moves to try to better themselves. I think there's a lot of teams that are looking for some of the things that the Flyers have to offer. We have a lot of wings. We have a defenseman with potential. With these teams who have 3, 4, 5 centers, they know they have to move one of them. So I think you're going to see some changes on the Flyers. I think there's going to be more changes than we thought. And I hope they're just not going to cost us a fortune. But again, going back to what I would like to see for the Flyers, I really don't want to see the Flyers spend 12, 13, 14 million dollars on one player. And I know I said this before. I know there's going to be a lot of people go, "You're crazy. We need that 1C, and you got to pay." I just think if they have such a tight group of guys right now, and they played really well. They did. Don't get me wrong. I know Vladar stood on his head, and if we didn't have Vladar, they wouldn't have got as far as they did. But guess what? We do have Vladar. We do have Wool now, which is another good goalie. I do think there's going to be some internal changes here, obviously, but I just would rather the Flyers build out 3 or 4 solid lines of potential of scoring. And that to me, you can go up and put like a one line against like a McDavid and try to shut him down. And then when your second, third, first lines go out against their second, third, or fourth lines, we should have better lines because they can't afford to really ice a good team. You know what I mean? Carolina did it because they controlled their cap, their salaries. And I think that's what the Flyers should do. And I know there's probably a lot of pressure on Danny to make that 1C move and that 1D move, and it's going to cost them if he does it, but I'd rather them build 3, 4 solid lines and go at it in that way and let the ones that you have and the ones that you drafted in actually learn and grow to be that first line people that you need it, not go out and buy them. That's my opinion. Again, I don't think there's no one out there that I would pay a lot of money for. I don't want an Austin Matthews in here. I just don't. I don't want this John Carlson. Bowen Byron, maybe, but again, he's going to want probably an arm and a leg at the end of the year. So interesting to see what Danny does. What's my prediction? My prediction is I think Danny will try to get a 1C. I think he does want that Austin Matthews type player. How he gets it though, and this is where he said it all in all, he's not going to make a move and hurt the rest of the team. It's going to have to make sense. So if he gets gutted to bring in an Austin Matthews, I don't think he brings in an Austin Matthews. I think he looks at it and he has a lot of temptation to do it, but I think in the end he doesn't pull that trigger. I think Danny's pretty good, and I think he's going to do the right thing for the Flyers as a whole. But I do think he's going to be aggressively trying to get those players if he can. And it may not be this year, it may be next year, but we'll see. So anyway, with that, wrapping up. The draft is this Friday, and hopefully we'll see some movement. July 1st, is coming quickly too. So I think July is going to be pretty busy. I don't know if there's going to be any movements at the draft, but we will come back probably mid-July and do another episode and kind of recap everything that has gone down. And in the meantime, let's keep our fingers crossed that this all works out for the Flyers and us fans, and we improve this team dramatically going into next season. We do have a lot of people listening, but not a lot of people are following on our YouTube channel. So we're out there. Please like and share and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next couple weeks, mid-July. Go Flyers.